Kelechi Deca, international journalist, joins me now to discuss this. He is in Lagos, Nigeria. Good evening to you, Mr. Deca. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you.
Well, we just had the good news there. India, the host of G20, through its Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, was the first to announce that the AU has been included as a member of the group. I have a two-pronged question for you. We've seen what's been going on with BRICS, the expansion of BRICS. Everybody's been talking about it. Is this a knee-jerk reaction to that, the threat of BRICS to the global Western powerhouses? And what does this mean for the African continent, this development?
Okay, first and foremost, we have to look at the history of the establishment of the G20. It started out of the need for both the developed economies of the world to come up with instruments and strategies of addressing some of the global challenges facing everybody. But on the table, they came up with the idea that there's no way you can address the challenges facing everybody without also bringing some of the people who are being who are the receiving end of some of these challenges. And that was how they expanded that organization to include some developing countries. And they brought in India, Brazil, and Argentina, and some of the developing, what they call emerging markets. And as at that time, we had the Mexican peso crisis, followed by the Asian financial crisis, then followed by the Russian crisis, then the 1998 global financial crisis. So the world needed an instrument that is more encompassing, that will even have that far-reaching beyond what the Bretton Woods institution, the United Nations Organization, and the World Trade Organization was able to afford. So basically, I think that what they've just done is a realization of the fact that there's no way you think about the world, there's no way you come up with policies to address the challenges facing the world, while you leave out a continent that has 1 billion population of the globe. Is no way. Then coming up with the issue of the BRICS, yes, although last year President Biden started the call to include African Union, so that African Union can come in with European Union being there as part of the G20, to make the whole thing more all-encompassing. But I would say that the expansion of the BRICS help to solidify, help to make this, hasten the admission of African Union into this group. But the question remains, what Africa stands to gain, whether, it's like you didn't contribute money to buy suya. There's the tendency for you to eat only the onions. So, that's where we are now.
You're making me want to just pass by the Mesuya after this bulletin, but let's move on. Let's talk about Nigeria's invitation to the G20 summit. It's seen as recognition of Nigeria's important global role as Africa's largest democracy and Africa's largest economy. What's your take on Nigeria participating in such a very important multilateral event?
Yeah, I think the Nigerian invitation, basically, yeah, we are the largest economy in Africa. But also, when you go back to history, there was this funny analogy that happened at the decision table on who and who should be part of the G20. There used to be this argument that when Timothy Geithner, who was the Deputy Secretary of Treasury of the United States, working under Larry Summers, when they were forming the G20, he came up with the idea that Canada in, Portugal out, South Africa in, Nigeria and Egypt out. It was like they were just throwing paper dice to decide who comes in and who goes out. But as at that time, South Africa was the largest economy in Africa. Aside from being the largest economy in Africa, it was also it had the most sophisticated financial market then in Africa. When you talk about emerging market then, it was it stood at a pole position of representing Africa at that time. But now, with where Nigeria is, both symbolically and the size of our economy and the size of our population, I think that the G20 also looked at the fact that it is important to bring in Nigeria, to invite Nigeria to be part of, to witness some of the deliberations. But with the African Union, being admitted, then Nigeria is already infused as part of the African Union. So that's where it will go from there on. But whether there is something to gain from being a member or being invited to that table is something I'm yet to see, because there are other interlinking in multilateral development organizations and other intergovernmental organizations whose agenda seem to be interwoven with one another. And if we're not able to harness some of those opportunities, I'm not sure how far we'll be able to harness this opportunity from the G20.
Kelechi Deca, thank you very much for your time. Interesting take on the developments. Kelechi Deca, international journalist, who joined us live from Lagos.
Thank you very much.